Tom, how are
How's
you?
it going? Good, you?
It's good, man. I'm a big fan of the show, so I'm glad to talk to you. And so I just wanted to get started with when you're coming into a show like this that's already in its third season versus something like Ted Lasso, where you directed the pilot and sort of established its. I also love Ted Lasso, so that's. But so I just want when you're establishing sort of the visual aesthetic of the show versus this one where it's already getting going. So what's your sort of approach when you come in like in the middle of the game?
Well, what is interesting with Upload, it's the first time in my career where I directed a show that I was a fan of, if you know what I mean. Like I'd watched the first two seasons, and it was one of the few things me and my girlfriend can sit and watch together that we both really enjoy and are on the same page with. So sort of watched the first two seasons religiously. And then it was sort of crazy then jumping on to direct it because it was with all these actors and characters that I'd grown to love so much. Um, what Upload lends itself to, though, as far as a director is concerned, is it's constantly introducing new elements to it, and new worlds, new environments, new characters. So, as a director, even though the sort of template's being set to an extent, I had whole new realms to invent, to really put, my own stamp on. So I can imagine with other jobs sort of jumping in, season 3 or later, it can feel a bit paint by numbers. But with Upload, there was just so much that, I got to invent, and, it was sort of unique to Upload. It's sort of type of stuff that you wouldn't get to do in other shows. Like I've got some worlds that feel sort of Dune-esque,
Mm.
and yeah, we've got a shared living space, a sort of dystopian view of what shared living might look like in the near future. And all that was new to my ep, so you got to sort of flex your muscles on a lot of things. And then you do sort of bring your sort of personal stamp to as many elements as you can. There's sort of one of my favorite moments in my episodes is a bit of an Edgar Wright reference, and I've sort of done quite a few of those throughout my career, and even in Upload it sort of works and it sort of fits. So yeah, it's a sort of nice mix of um keeping the ship going in the right direction it was on, and not getting in the way too much, because it really works. It's the number one rated comedy on Amazon, and people love it. So you don't want to rock the boat too much, but at the same time you get these nice little moments where you can really make it your own and put your own stamp on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get a lot to do in these two episodes. And when you are sort of creating the what's like you're doing the real world, like I don't think you spent a lot more time in the real world this season compared to the last two seasons. So were you sort of basing some of your inspiration from what you think, like, where our sort of regular society might be going, or something like you said, like Dune or something like that? Or is it bringing you different inspirations, like, oh, this could be that, or that could be this?
Well, it's sort of a mix, but I would say like the best example would be we've got this shared living
Yeah.
environment. Nathan and Nora are sort of a bit down and out. They're struggling with the real world in every which way, including very much just money and getting a roof over your head. And they end up going to this, shared living place, which is, this windowless space filled with these sort of pods that people are living in. Some no bigger than you know, a coffin. And what's so crazy about that is I'd been really interested for the past few years in these type of coffin homes that already exist in places like Korea and across Asia in particular, where yeah, people are living in apartments that I think are meant to be like 2-3 bedrooms, but they get gutted out and install these sort of pods where people live. and yeah, it's sort of a bit grim, but and feels dystopian, but it's happening now. You know, this is how people, some poor people are having to live now, and so in that case, it was, you know, look, this is what's happening now. What's our sort of, you know, near future version of that? And we've sort of, you know, ended up in a space that, you know, has a bit of a shimmer on it, you know, has a bit of a you know, an Upload-esque shimmer on it, but is still super super sort of grim. And one of the things with that in particular was, you know, we wanted to get across the idea that it wasn't necessarily the down and outs who were living in these spaces. You know,
Yeah.
we've got people in shirt and ties, and they've got spreadsheets up on the walls in their cells. You know, and they've got jobs going from the looks of it, but even they have ended up in these sort of like pretty grim living quarters. I guess trying to get across the idea that in this near future, it could be us, it could be anyone could end up in these spaces. And I think that's, you know, sort of depressingly sort of, you know, could be very accurate.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice contrast with how upbeat Nathan's mom is. So it's but and then when you have this episode, I think episode 4, it's you're dealing with a lot of stuff, like, because this is Upload is billed as a comedy, but then there's these dramatic moments, romantic, and then it sort of ends on like there's a conspiracy thriller sort of unraveling, and then there's also this horror story near the end of the episode. So what's the sort of challenge that presents to you as a director, just trying to balance all these tones and sort of getting them right?
Yeah, it's sort of like from scene to scene, it becomes clear what the drive is, you know, and what the key thing to focus on. But I think the conspiracy element and the sort of thriller element to it can't be sort of underestimated, because I think that's, for me, on top of the comedy and the likability of the characters, that's what makes it sort of so bingeable. You know, when that cliffhanger comes at the end of each episode, you've got to watch the next. So it's sort of really important to keep your eyes on that throughout the episode, and sort of really do those moments justice. Because yeah, I know from sitting with my girlfriend, who's also a big fan, you know, I'll often, you know, have been ready for bed. We've done a couple of episodes, but because that cliffhanger's come, she needs to watch the next one there and there, you know. But then what's great about Upload is it also has moments where it doesn't take itself so seriously and sort of really delivers on the concept of it, which I really love. You know, it sort of delivers these crazy moments you could only get with Upload and with the concept behind it, you know. And I sort of lean into the jugular a bit with the comedy moments there, because I think you're allowed to, because of the premise it's been set up. Like I think my funniest moment in my episodes, I don't know if I'm allowed to give it away completely, but I'll just say, like, Cheese and AI Guy. What would happen if a AI guy is trying to learn how to eat cheese for the first time in his life, you know? So you've got moments like that, and we've really indulged it. And I think you're sort of allowed to, and you've got license to, and you know, they really work, and it doesn't come at the expense of the love story or the thriller elements. And I think that's the other thing is I had a lot of Nora and Nathan scenes. I was sort of aware that the fan base has become really connected, and you know, sort of really rooting for that love story. So again, it was sort of leaning into those moments, and luckily Robbie and Andy are sort of have that natural chemistry and can sort of conjure up those very real seeming moments between them. And you know, we've got lots of sweet moments in there, and I think yeah, the fans will be really pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. And then mentioning Robbie, like, he's sort of like the textbook definition of what you would expect when you like describe leading man. But So like when you have him playing these two different Nathans, um are your notes to him as a director different? Or are you like waiting to see how he's approaching each one? Because they're not like that much different, I guess, technically in age, but like, you know, a lot of stuff has happened to like the real Nathan since I guess the backup was uploaded. So what's your sort of approach to like working with Robbie as
I'm
the
so sorry. Is this recording now?
Yes, yes.
Is this the got my bells ringing relentlessly?
Oh no, no, you're fine. I can't. I don't think it's catching it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the thing I really enjoyed about that is you know, Nathan, as we know, is a bit of a vain character, certainly with what we set up in season one. I think the very first, you know, one of the very first shots, Nora sees him in, it's him checking himself out in the motorcycle mirror. You know, so we've set up this archetypal, handsome, you know, hero. But this season, in my episodes in particular, we do pile a lot on him. And we're really able to see the sort of chinks in the armor starting to develop. And even though, as you say, it's only like days in it when between real world Nathan and sort of VR Nathan, you know, a lot of the notes given to Robbie were about seeing the sort of insecurity and neuroses starting to develop in real world Nathan, in contrast to, you know, VR Nathan, where a lot of the notes were about, you know, you've just got that constant pep in your step, you know, loving Lakeview, you're loving your relationship with Ingrid. And it was sort of really fun, sort of pulling and contrasting those two different versions of him. And I think like a lot of it was done even with the costume. We put a little bit of a podge on real world Nathan. I don't know if you guys use that word, but yeah, just a little bit of a belly on real world Nathan. And even just in the physicality of that, just seeing, you know, the heartthrob of Nathan that we'd seen for these two seasons, suddenly just having a little bit of a podge shifted so much. And, you know, we had a lot of fun seeing Nathan get even more insecure when he sees people noticing it. So there was a lot to play with. And Robbie, I think, is just such a, you know, he's obviously a very handsome dude, very handsome, charismatic dude, but he's a great comedic actor and really relished the opportunity to make himself look a bit stupid at times and, you know, do things that are a little bit, you know, off the Nathan scale. And seeing him get, you know, out of his comfort zone, he really relished that and really went for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to keep you too long, but the guy at the end, I forgot his name, but without the eyelid, how long did it sort of take to settle on that look for that character and making him as creepy as possible? And obviously, how that whole little arc plays out.
Yeah, so there was a few references kicking around, but it sort of was on the page. It was sort of when we sort of worked backwards from like, right, this guy's really stripped back. He's the sort of beta version of the avatars we know in Lakeview. So we should lose the hair, obviously. And then the eyelids thing, you know, no eyelids. Little did we know was going to be the key to one of the funniest scenes I've ever shot. Just basically having a character with no eyelids immediately makes something 10 times funnier, we would come to know. But the real sort of eureka moment was the guy that came into audition. He had this sort of southern drawl to it, and it was almost like a little bit effeminate in how he delivered, like not at all how I had envisioned it. You know, I guess I thought you'd have him sound a bit creepy, and maybe it's croaky, maybe his voice box is going, maybe that's what makes it creepy. But yeah, this actor came in and just sort of brought this weird unsettling energy to it that was both hilarious and creepy. And it's just so great because sometimes that happens where you don't give that note at all, and an actor will bring it, and you see it, and you immediately go, "Yes, that's it," you know. And yeah, there was an amazing moment when we were filming it where I filmed Robbie's side of the conversation with him first,
Mhm.
and I could hear, our guy without eyelids from in the cans, and it was really funny. But the first single he got on him, yeah, I laughed out loud. I ruined the take because I was really seeing it in close up for the first time. And Robbie said to me, like, "Oh, so now you know what I've been dealing with for the past 8 takes." And I was like, "Yeah, man, yeah, well done for keeping a straight face." And it has, even that, we're talking about the tone of it. That turns into a little bit of a sort of thriller moment
Mhm.
itself, a little bit of a action moment, and it's all great stuff. That this is my dog, by the way. It's all that great stuff that you would only get in a sitcom like Uploads, where you've got the comedy, but the stakes are sort of high, and it's a matter of life and death when you get to have characters with no eyelids popping up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's the most. I think it would be the most memorable sort of character of the season. But anyway, thank you so much, Tom. This has been really great. I really appreciate your time.
Cheers, man. Thanks, Rohan.
Dude, thank you, Mila.
Thanks, Rohan.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.